and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes, but is not limited to, my boy, the Tortoise. What's poppin', Brian? How you
What's
feeling
happening?
today?
It's good.
I feel like he didn't know where he was going with that until the end.
He knew. That was smooth.
He was going to go Guapo, but then he went my boy the Tortoise. Because you're not my boy the Tortoise. You're the Tortoise.
No.
I'm not his boy?
I was actually going with Brian the whole time.
I'm not his boy.
You do not know
You're not his
the
boy, you're his
relationship
turtle.
status
You're his
between
turtle.
Conrad and I, okay?
I don't know a lot
I'm
of
feeling
things.
good,
okay?
man. His buckos are looking nice. I got the shirt on. Berkey's got the shirt on. We can't help it. You know, It's just, I mean, just beating up on the best team in baseball.
Who's the best team in baseball? Yeah.
Philadelphia Phillies.
apparently.
No,
Yeah.
that's a joke.
You're a joke.
Aren't the Dodgers usually up there?
Dodgers are pretty good. I'm talking about strictly, you know, record-wise. I mean, Philly's got a really nice team, but, you know, couldn't handle our pitchers. Good day, Burke.
Well, I'm a little miffed. The Pirates, look, I'm very thrilled that they're one game above 500. They've been a lot of fun to watch.
They need some work. They
scored a bunch of runs. That was really nice. Kutch looks fucking great.
Oh, gosh.
Why does my headphones look crooked?
How old is Kutch?
Weird.
It's your
37.
crooked.
37 years young.
Their pitching staff should just be a hell of a lot better, given that they're anchored by two young rookies throwing 100. Like, it's weird to me. They come off of the All-Star break, and they have a 3-game set against the best team in baseball, and they go, let's throw our 4-5 in bullpen.
Yeah, that's because they wanted Keller and Skeens for this upcoming series against St. Louis.
I gotta get the cards.
Well, I mean, you
Gotta
know,
beat them. I mean,
that's
we
the
stole
team.
two from
That's
Philly.
the team you're fighting.
Yeah.
Playoff spot against.
That's true.
So.
We did steal two from Philly.
Yeah,
so we can't
it
really,
actually worked out really nice.
It's
We really
nice.
stole that first game.
It's nice when it works out nicely. You know, we definitely stole the first game. That's very true. Sorry, I'm trying to set up this stupid in the muck. It's really hard because, as you guys will hear when we get to it, the cutoff limp calls, and
Not a thing.
that range is hard for me to find.
No, the cutoff didn't limp call.
No, the cutoff
made
raises.
raises, and then the button call.
Falls. And everybody else
Are
falls.
we sure?
Yeah, the two
We're pretty
limpers.
sure it went limp, 15 call.
The real in the muck is making the hand before it starts.
I mean, I screwed up the hand or the replayer the first time, so I could have screwed it up again.
No.
No?
You are right. Okay, that makes my life a lot easier.
Yeah.
I'll worry about that later then.
Yeah.
As you guys are aware,
Brian's very happy about this.
I'm happy about it too. I got to tell you, I was manufacturing some shit over here. I felt like what's his face from Breaking Bad, just like pouring a little of this here, a little of that there.
Nah, that guy knew what was going on. You don't know what's going on.
Well, that's true. He had a money-making
Walter
operation.
White knows what's going on.
Walter White, thank you, appreciate it.
Get yourself an
Never
RV.
Nah, it
saw
was Jesse.
Breaking Bad.
I've seen like one season.
I've seen like one episode.
Kind of got bored.
Ooh, I just started the second season of The Bear.
Oh, I just watched. The second season?
Yeah,
I just
but-
finished the third. It's so fucking good, man.
Yeah,
what I
second
hear.
season is just a lot of just rebuilding the restaurant, and it's like, okay.
Wait till you get to the Christmas episode. That's the one. I think it's called Seven Fishes.
The Bears brought Rat Boy Summer. You know about this?
No.
Rat Boy Summer. That's where like all the girls want like guys that kind of look like a rat. Like they're
he has a little
like main character kind of looks a little like ratty. Right.
Yeah, he has a little rodent-esque kind of pointiness to him.
Yeah.
I could see that.
It's Rat Boy Summer.
He's a good-looking
It's
dude, I
Rat
think.
Boy.
You know, like he's the kind of guy that like you expect him to have tattoos and smoke cigarettes.
Does he?
He has both of those. Yeah. Both main character flaws. Not flaws, but characteristics.
Did you guys catch the season finale of
No.
Love Island?
No.
No.
I heard about it.
But Melissa sent us
Bro, come on.
sent us a video of one of the dudes from Love Island's butthole
stop.
spread open.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Which dude?
Brian, if you didn't
Don't
unmute
know.
the chat, maybe you'd see it.
Yeah,
See, that's
this is
good.
what you're missing in our chat.
Let me go back through.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know what's going on in that show, but I don't want anything to do with
Man,
it.
there's a lot.
It's not good.
So here's how it starts out. No,
No one cares. So we have a packed show today with a conversation that I truly did not think we were going to continue to have. We addressed this last week with Platt and Hanks in the building. I think it was like last
Thursday.
Okay, I was gonna say Wednesday. That's good to know. And I thought that would kind of like be the end of it, and honestly, it probably would have been. But Dominic is he's here to die on this hill, and he's gonna defend and troll his way into infamy. If he hasn't already, it's been a wild
Iconic.
5-day ride with him just calling everyone idiots. I mean, it's been quite entertaining from the
Dom
outside.
versus everybody.
It's really nice to just watch this instead of being a part of it. You know, it's fucking great.
Now you
but
know
yeah,
how we feel.
it did all start with this post where he was basically just trying to dunk on all the naysayers. By the way, I mean, like nothing says shit posting like a screen cap of your phone,
Of your entire phone. and
that
not
includes
cropping
like
it or-
you turning down the volume.
Yeah.
Your 14% battery. I mean, like, come on, bro. Like, just download the fucking picture that Haley took to begin with. Like, let's not be so lazy about this. But basically, he said the best thing about winning or having a piece of somebody who won the main event was the money. The second best thing was hearing how mad the biggest dipshits on Twitter get when they see someone using a laptop on the rail. And honestly, if it had ended there, I would have been on his side. I'm pretty sure of it. Like, I mean, we'll talk about my perspective on this I guess towards the end of the show. But at first glance, outside of optics, don't think this is that big of a deal. But it's gone haywire, man. We're rogue now. We're all, I mean, there's an emergency podcast after this one.
Jeez.
Between the poker royalty, the three Mount Rushmore figureheads of all things that be, Polk, Negreanu, and Keating are hopping on to basically reiterate everything that we're going to tell you here today, and that's been said time and time again. So I mean, really, this comes down to for everybody who's not sure what we're talking about. Essentially, I'm not sure if he was there from 9 down to the winner or if it was just from 3 down to the winner. But either way, it's nothing new for main event final table lists to have like teams of people behind them. Now
He was there. I don't know if the laptop was also there.
okay, fair.
The laptop's always there, bro.
In
Yeah,
the
the
past,
laptop is always there.
Now,
Now,
people have sold action for coaching, right? At the final
when
table.
it was the November 9, I mean, like, you know, we spent a month in New York helping Russell train for this final table appearance. So this is nothing new, and it certainly was born out of the idea of the November 9, where you have a 3-month window to kind of like sharpen your skills, prepare for a sit and go that's going to be worth 7 figures. Sometimes
Bring that
8.
back, man.
I agree.
Bring that back.
I'm with it.
I actually agree. And not for the training purposes. But it's weird because
Make a documentary about it, you know?
right, but it doesn't
Make it cool.
So it's weird because yes, all the content opportunities are now there that weren't being capitalized on as much in the early 2010s. We just weren't mature yet as a YouTube audience or anything along those lines. But it's interesting because it doesn't seem to work for the WPT. Like, nothing comes of them delaying the final tables, right? Outside of their own personal production.
Like TV production?
Yeah.
It's probably budget cost too.
How
like-
so?
I mean, just not having to bring your like film crew everywhere.
I'm pretty sure they're still filming the lead up to the final table. I understand what you're saying though. They don't have to do the full blown production.
Yeah,
Like it's in house basically.
exactly.
I don't know,
Yeah.
like
Just
to me
one
it seems
spot.
kind of cool, right? Like if you just have this whole documentary about like the people that make the FT and like what they do to prepare for it, or like life before poker, kind of like everything before the FT, and then you have the FT edited down into like the really cool spots.
Yeah, I think
That'd be
this is a
cool.
big miss by PokerGo.
You know, like that seems cool to me, but like everything going on, like every hand is kind of like, man, this is now an 8-hour fest every day of just limping and folding.
So this is something that PokerGo attempted after. So we did this for Dead Money, obviously. We kind of built a documentary of the lead up to playing my first high roller.
Which went well.
It went well, but I mean, that was lucky, right? And then they reattempted this a year or two later, following Brandon Adams, Daniel Negreanu, and a couple others, and it kind of flamed out. Nobody made a deep run. So a little bit unlucky. And that was to my knowledge, that was like the only piece of original content that PokerGo had produced in-house. When I say original content, I mean like
Outside of poker.
Yeah, like docu-series, not just like filming a live event. But I think this is a big miss by them, not bringing back the November 9 and not utilizing their in-house team to just follow those 9 players and tell that story, right? We were discussing a lot last week of how we feel slighted as a community that the main event gets stuck behind the paywall, et cetera, et cetera. Well, one way that they could actually still capture that audience of people willing to pay for content and release the main event for free would be to do something like this, where there is an entire like the documentary Receivers or Quarterbacks that's on Netflix. That comes to mind as like the structure you would want to follow. Right?
A really quick segue to that, Matt, is HBO Boxing. When HBO used to do pay-per-view, 3 weeks prior to the fight,
24/7.
They would do a 24/7 where they follow the boxers around. You see their training camp, hanging out with their families.
Yeah, that was what we were trying to mimic.
For poker, kind of lets you pick a side or relate to a certain player.
Exactly.
I think it helps sell the event.
Exactly. And if you're releasing those, in stages, weekly, whatever, and maybe it's the other way around. Maybe that's the content that gets released for free in order to funnel people to watch the main event live. Because if you give them, 7 or 8 weeks to get invested in these stories, to watch these behind the scenes, now all of a sudden, like, I don't think you lose people as much as you would have if it's like a 24-hour turnaround.
You're not
time.
just watching, 9 random people that you probably have no idea who they are play this game for millions of dollars. Now you have characters.
Exactly.
Right? And that's something to latch onto.
And there are a lot of other arms in the industry that will build off of that too. Like we would, be showcasing each of these stories throughout the course of that time, because what else are we going to talk about?
And that's kind of what ESPN kind of did when they would have the main event
for the produced content.
They would build characters, and they had time to do it.
Exactly. So I mean, that's a very large aside, but I do think it's a really strong argument for one way that PokerGo could at least quiet the voices screaming, "We want the main event for free."
You can never quiet the voices, man.
No, but I do think that like making this the biggest event that happens annually in our space is it's not their responsibility, but it's the opportunity that they are afforded by owning the license to the World Series, in my opinion, right? Owning that license is obviously going to be a way to capture revenue just simply by being able to be the one who puts the event on. But the more you make of the event, the more revenue I think that you can increase from it. And then also the more that people care ancillary to poker.
Do you think a potential issue is some people that make FT might not be willing to play ball in a sense, and like don't want to do the interviews or
Possibly.
the backstories?
It only hurts them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right? If they come in as a shadow, I think that they only lose on their own branding opportunities. Right? Like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for most that are going to make the final table. There's very little you get to squeeze out of it monetarily, but there's some ability to, become a fan favorite. Yeah. Do your podcast tour, whatever, like little ways to eke out value from the experience.
Yeah. I mean, selfishly would have worked out pretty well with the cast of characters we got for this FT.
Would have been incredible.
You have someone that's played live for many, many years, and Tamayo that's obviously very good at poker and been around. You have like a bunch of people that kind of play for fun, do different things, and then still make FT. And then you have debatably like the best online player to exist at the moment.
Yeah.
Who loaded up another Sunday, by the way.
Yeah.
In the 320 Grand Prix.
Yeah, pretty incredible.
Got second in the 5K Titans.
And the thing is that like it's way more achievable now than it ever has been, given the vlogging space, right? Like, so a good for instance is after Espen won the main event, and it may have even been during. I can't really recall when he started, like, kind of capturing more of, you know, his kind of experience. But he basically had a full, I don't want to say a full camera crew. That's not fair.
A full Philip Blank.
What would you call Philip?
I mean, he did everything for him.
Yeah,
Kinda.
he's just like the editing team, basically.
Like recorder, editor. I mean, he kind of was everything all in one.
Right,
It's pretty sick.
And I guess my point is that it's not that difficult for each person to have somebody like Philip with them, right? It's not super expensive. It's not free. Don't get me wrong. Like, you know, we're still talking about like a 6-figure production budget that maybe PokerGo doesn't want to front. But
for the game,
short term, it's a loss, but I think it's a loss leader. Like, in my opinion, fronting, if it costs them $200K every WSOP to add this additional layer alongside the November 9, I think eventually they would see returns on that.
is there kind of like a community-wide census or consensus that there's not enough? Not there's not enough viewership, but there could be more. It's like, how do we do something about that?
I don't know if quantifying it as viewership is the right way or the right metric to look at. I think we all just feel like there isn't enough like national support for this event. Like, it doesn't seem like it's hyped enough.
Like there used to be.
Yes.
It used to be
I try
right?
not to look back because so much has changed. Right? We don't have ESPN involved anymore, so it's really hard to compare apples to oranges.
Yeah. ESPN made it a big deal.
It was a huge deal, but it was also like not a big deal when it was live. So it was very similar back then as it is now, in that when the live event came to be, it was barely a spectacle. The only thing that was different was a little bit of the production side.
It was the late night reruns that caught everyone.
Yeah. Well, not even just late night, like the scheduled Tuesday at 7 p.m. where you would get back-to-back episodes.
Like, people don't know poker, but they know about the main.
Correct.
You know?
Yeah. And I think like what's lacking is this being a talking point on sports media, right? Like,
no one gives a shit anymore.
You don't really tune into Sports Center and hear anything about the main event. You
used to, though?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. This is before my time. I didn't know any of this shit.
Yeah, I mean, like, some main event champs for sure have been on ESPN, like you know, First Take or whatever.
Yeah.
Just kind of doing the
I
media
think a lot
tour.
of people that aren't into poker still think that it's on ESPN.
I think
still
so, too.
think, like, because they'll be like, you know, like I'll hear from like friends, like if I'm playing like,
Where's
an
the
event, be like, oh, I hope to see you on TV, and like you're gonna need a PokerGo subscription.
Well, I mean,
There's no TV
Obviously,
anymore.
it comes out on CBS later, but like I think that in people's minds, they still think that, like, you know, they're gonna turn on like ESPN and see it.
the easiest comparison is like the hot dog eating contest. Like, if that's not on ESPN any longer, I would never know it, and I would think it's on ESPN forever.
Exactly.
Right? So it's just like every
Exactly.
4th of July, I would just
Yeah.
be like, hey, is the Nathan's contest on
Right.
ESPN?
Yeah.
Be like, bro, that's on
gotta be in
Court
person
TV
for that now.
and it's like, oh, I don't
It's
care.
on Hot Dog Go.
It's like, I don't care.
Glizzy Go?
Glizzy
Glizzy go. So yeah, I do think that like there's a, you know, this is a big aside when we're talking about like
So laptops.
like the opportunities that are available, but the kind of like wraparound conversation there is what it looks like optically. So I think that I think obviously the November 9 or whatever the hell you want to call it, if you want to give some space between them making the final table and getting there. We covered this ad nauseum last week. It's great for the players. It allows them to bring family and friends out. I think it's good for the lead up and the viewing experience overall. And then also allows you to iron out a lot of these problems that we seem to have come to the forefront this year. Now, to be abundantly clear, this is not new. Teams have been formed for players at the final table dating all the way back to probably, I don't know, Kata might have been the first year, if not certainly shortly thereafter. By 2012, the Merson Sylvia year with Russell Thomas, like everybody had a camp, and we were, you know, doing a lot of prep leading up. So you see here, this is 2014, the year that Martin Jacobson won it. There's Scott Seaver on the rail with, you know, headphones and he's watching the stream and he's relaying information. This is 2021 with Korai. Same thing. There's a laptop on the rail watching the stream. Who knows if they're running sims or not? This is Cliff Joseph's year where Qui Win won it. This is, I think, 2016. Gordon Veo. Again, laptop on the rail. Pretty sure. Was that the year that Doug coached Gordon? I'm pretty sure. So like I think he even alluded to this, that like, you know, he was coaching him on the sidelines. Now granted, he claimed that he wasn't giving any strategic advice. Maybe it wasn't, it might have been the Blumstein year. Dan Ott, I think, was the kid that
yeah, Doug said he did coaching for Dan.
Yeah, it was for Dan Ott. That's right. Shout out to Dan Ott from just outside of the Pittsburgh area. I think he's from Altoona. But basically he said like they weren't offering any advice, which I think is bullshit. Although, based off the way he played Heads Up versus Blumstein, maybe it wasn't bullshit. Maybe they really weren't doing any adjustments. But either way, I don't think there's a problem with this.
I think the biggest difference is that it was so blatant this year, right?
Well, it's twofold. One, it's right in your face. Like, it was so obvious. We saw in that Poker News video where they kind of memed the fact that Tamayo was like sprinting to his rail and then like looking at something and like kind of walking away and looking back at something.
Yeah.
And,
Wait,
you know,
make
kind
sure
of
I got this right.
Yeah, doing a double take.
It's weird to double take if they say RFI 100 on the button. Like, did I get this one wrong? It's like,
well, I mean, that's
That was freeze right.
that's obviously not what.
that's good.
I think there's also a big misconception of what they were looking at. They weren't looking at pre-flop ranges. You know, it's almost certain that they were looking at like ICM spots leading up to the final three, and then once they got to heads up, I imagine he's looking at like responses to buttons. That would be my best guess. Like, having studied a little bit of heads up, the most difficult thing to understand pre-flop is not how you play your button. That strategy is pretty baked.
It's about limp versus RFI.
Exactly.
What your 3-bet range looks like.
Precisely.
What your jams look like.
Right.
Which he wasn't playing like optimally from the button.
Right.
Because
we're talking about like if he's the big blind facing a button open, what your 3-bet range is supposed to look like.
Right, yeah.
Or if they limp, like what your jams are supposed to be, which is a lot tougher than RFI 100.
Right, but from the button, you're supposed to have like a heavy limp strategy and then open polar.
Well,
right?
you can, but you don't have to. But
I guess so. Right.
But the point is like it doesn't. If he's just RFIing 100, you don't need to look at button strategy.
Right.
But you look at defense.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I assume anyway that that's the realm in which they were going. I'm not sure what else, because like obviously they're not running anything in real time. There's no computing power for that. I mean, maybe he's dialed into a laptop back in fucking Germany somewhere that is a super server and he's able to pull things up.
Probably not with the Wizard Heads Up AI.
Right.
Where you can just lock what you think the big blind defense is.
Well, he wasn't using Wizard, but we could see. So Dom said that they were using DTO leading up until the heads up, but DTO doesn't have big blind ante for heads up, so they had to go the HRC Munker way.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I saw the Munker in there.
Yeah, I would imagine they're just looking at like pre-flop responses.
It's probably just pre-flop locks. And they're just like, okay, you use these hands to 3-bet, you use these hands to jam if he limps, and go on your way. And it's like, oh wait, is it king 3 off or king 4 off? You know?
Right. So that's basically everything that happened. And I think the reason why there's been a big outcry is, one, it was very blatant. They didn't try to conceal it in any capacity, which, you know, to be fair, kudos to them. Like, they didn't think they were cheating, so they weren't going to do anything to like cover it up. You know, like they were doing it out in plain sight and nobody was policing them. So that in and of itself kind of is a point in the corner of like, this is not as big of a deal as we're making it seem.
It's better than covert ops, you know, if they think they're doing something wrong and they're like, hey man, like it's king 4 off, you know, versus like, oh, here's your textbook.
But secondly, there's been such an outcry with the potential abuse of tools such as DTO or GTO Wizard, where you can look at real-time solutions for spots that either have passed or may come to be. And this conversation is now going on the better part of a year as far as what we as a community should do to respond to this. Now, the majority of spots where we actually saw this most abused was in like live cash games. There were a couple instances where somebody was just like blatantly using it in a Bellagio cash game last year.
Do you remember the napkin?
Yeah.
The napkin gate where people put their ranges on the napkin?
Yeah.
Really?
It was like Quinton suited plus.
Whatever. My opinion doesn't really matter on these things, but
Jamin had a really good idea.
Go on.
He said GTO Wizard was a sponsor, right? Just give them all laptops at the final table and give them 2 minutes per decision, family feud style.
That is not a good idea. Your version of good idea is questionable.
Dun, 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 get the music going. Dun, 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 dun.
There's a reason why. There's a reason specifically why that's a bad idea, and it's the viewer's experience. I think that like at the end of the day, this is still a packaged production where you're trying to really cater to an amateur audience. And not only is this optically terrible,
Not very amateur-like to start running to the rail for Sims.
yeah, like look,
It's not very fun like.
I don't. No, it is fun. That's the thing.
It's fun for. I mean, I enjoy it, but I'm like the based autist.
That's
So
not
like,
fun for the viewer.
It's not for me.
Well, I don't know that it's not fun. I mean, like there's an all-in moment. He's on the rail, like he's talking to his team. I don't think that there's a problem with audience participation necessarily. Again, I think this all goes back to
Maybe you're right.
the underlying aspect of people being fearful that these tools are being abused in real time.
Yeah.
And this, I've seen this get mistakenly thrown about so much over the last 4 or 5 days where these conversations are taking place. Yesterday, Polk had the runner-up, Griff, on his podcast. Griff was like pretty matter of fact about things. He wasn't really upset about the team as far as I could tell. Doesn't think that like Jonathan needs to be stripped from his position as champion or anything along those lines, but also does acknowledge that, you know, it optically looks pretty bad and, you know, maybe a small edge could be garnered from something along these lines. I think the thing that bothers me the most is people keep throwing around the word real-time assistance, RTA. And that's not what this is, right? Like we need to be very specific in the terminology that we use. Like there's a huge difference between RTA and like looking at a chart. Like looking at a chart while you have a live hand is RTA.
Yeah, if he had the laptop at the table while he was playing,
Right.
that would be RTA.
Right, that's RTA. Looking at a chart prior to going and getting dealt a hand is like studying. I don't know what to call it, but it's something different.
PTA, it's pastime assistance.
Yeah, it's something different because it still at least requires recall, right? Whereas if you're at the table with the device in front of you and the chart pulled up in front of your face, like there's no recall necessary. You're literally just looking at you're looking at a cheat sheet and you're following it.
Studying is basically pastime assistance. You know, it's like, oh, I looked at this 3 months ago and I never remember it's a range bet.
Yeah.
Are you cheating? No.
Or it's like if you like, yeah, you were studying for a test literally like 30 seconds before you had to walk in the room and take the test. Like you still have to recall the what you just studied.
Right. So I think that the conversation then begins to frame out around how unreasonable is it for players to have access to information that will help them in game.
It's like, you're cheating. You studied this for 10 years. You're banned.
Well, not entirely.
No, but like it's the same idea.
No, it's not the same idea.
Well, like looking at something 30 seconds before versus like spending time off of the table.
Yeah, there's a big difference between cramming while you're in. Like, there's a huge difference between taking a test and being able to walk away every 10 minutes to review
that's fair.
the next question that you're going to have.
Studying before you start playing as opposed to studying in between the hands that you are playing of the tournament.
You can make the argument that like, because I guess it's tournament arena versus like, let's say you finish day one and you have those 4 days off. The tournament's still going on, but you're not in the tournament.
Right.
So you can still study, like
you're not
you
actively
can study.
playing.
But we're talking about like the difference between recall over the course of seconds or minutes versus recall over days or weeks or months or years, right? Like there's a huge difference in your ability to actually tap into that information.
Especially when you get in the exact spot that you're looking at need. Like big blind wise, like you just know exactly what range.
Right, like you're going to be in the big blind, you're going to face a raise.
And
now what do you do?
And you both have 40 or 50 big blinds.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, he's able to again, like, look, is there an edge to this? Of course, they wouldn't have done it if there wasn't. Is it insurmountable? No. Like,
because heads up variance is unreal anyways.
Well, the variance is unreal, of course, but like it's only one street, and the mistake that could have been made is probably negligible if you chose the other option, right? Like if you have a hand that mixes between 3-bet and call, and you don't know that and just pure call it, it's probably not going to have that great of an impact on your strategy. Because
like you still have to play the node where you 3-bet and he calls.
Right. And now if you just pure call it instead, like you just have to play that node with a little bit more king 8 in it than you otherwise might have.
Have we heard from the that like the higher ups at WSOP, like Jack? Has he weighed in on this at all?
Of course not.
Yeah, I mean, because like he was at the I mean, he was at the final table. I'm sure he was aware that there was a laptop there, and he was Tamaya was looking
very
at it.
aware. So
right. So, but he didn't didn't step in at the time and say, hey, this is against the rules. You can't do this.
Well, there's a reason for that. Guapo, if you pull up the Jen Shahade tweet, you can click in the tweet where she has the highlighted thing. So this has been floating around. This is what was put into the rules last year. And it says players of the 2023 World Series will be penalized if they're caught using or referencing a solver during a live hand. Additionally, the WSOP reserves the right to issue penalties. Click in the... Yeah, can you make it big?
Sure, give me 1 second.
Additionally, the WSOP reserves the right to issue penalties to players who are using solvers in between hands. If caught using an RTA/GTO... See, even this language, it's like they just don't know what the fuck they're talking about when they wrote this. If caught using an RTA GTO software, Jesus Christ, during a hand, player will be subject to penalty up to and including DQ. Trespass, WSOP said in a prepared statement, we reserve the right to further penalize a player for using these devices in any situations in our sole and absolute discretion. Players may continue to use their device to play WSOP.com or use the Caesar Sportsbook app while out of a hand.
Caesar Sportsbook.
Right, of course. Okay.
Got a parlay going on, man. Relax.
So this was discussed last year, and we couldn't find it. This is from a Poker News article. We couldn't find anything in this year's TOCs or terms of service. I believe that Dom went through it front to back, and nothing like this presented itself. There was, however, if you go to the DNegs tweet, there was, however, an announcement made during a bunch of different events, albeit none that Dom had attended, where they announced over the loudspeaker what the rules would be regarding outside software.
We do ask you to please do not use any type of poker solvers at any point in time at the table or in the tournament area. If you are found using one of these poker solvers, there's a possibility of being disqualified from this tournament.
I personally, as somebody who's in the industry that understands how these tools work and everything else, it's very clear to me that the powers that be that are, making decisions here are doing so without the full scope of information and seem to just be reacting to kind of like public scrutiny, right? Last year, that was a very clear addendum attached due to the fact that somebody was caught at the table with Wizard Open, and we made a big deal of it as a community. What seems clear to me, though, is the generic language, the lack of specifics, even when it comes to the penalty side, that's them covering their ass. They don't want to be put into a precarious situation where they have to follow the letter of a law and suddenly, give someone a 1-round penalty or a DQ at a major final table like this due to a rule breach.
Then the problem is the response is subjective.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And look, that's okay whenever you're talking about a private entity like the WSOP who's free to do as they wish in the way that they police things. But where it becomes difficult is the gray area through which people are operating, right? So in this particular instance, for example, Jonathan wasn't using any device. His team was.
Right.
And he was consulting them.
Right.
So technically, by the letter of the law, he didn't really break any rules.
Right.
But and I think that's Dom's stance. He's very rigid with it needs to either be black or white, and either it's allowed or it's not, and we need to kind of make it abundantly clear to everybody involved what the rules of the game are. And I get that, but oftentimes things are too messy for that to be the case. So I really think what we need to do is, as a community, we need to decide, how impactful things like this are, how much they are hurting or helping the community as a whole, the growth, whatever you want to say, and then police it accordingly without like laying a heavy hand. Because I don't think that it's necessary to turn this into some sort of like, I don't think it's necessary to turn it into the mountain that it's become when it truly is, in my opinion, a molehill. Like Pads previously spoke of being home, running things on a server, and then relaying it back to a team that was in Vegas, railing somebody at the final table, right? I think that's totally fine, right? Because optically, no one's any the wiser.
Right.
Right? And you know, Savage kind of spoke on this quite a bit too. He's like, I'm fine with this stuff on breaks. And I like kind of agree that 20 minutes is yours to do with as you see fit. You know, we would never discourage people from like looking at ICM numbers on break. But that's strategic also. I think that really what it comes down to is a question of who is this hurting and how heavily should it be policed? And you know, I have my opinions, but like maybe the community at large sees this very differently, especially based off of how much conversation there's been. But to me, immediately when I saw it, like my personal feeling was this isn't a big deal, right? But maybe I'm in the minority here whenever it comes down to this, because the conversation on Twitter makes it appear as though it is a very big deal, and that, you know, Tamayo should give back $10 million, be caned and sent to a Taiwanese prison somewhere for at least until next main event, where he can then come defend his honor.
Just win it again. Easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's so inconsistent to me. This is what I find to be like so strange. Do you guys remember when we were negotiating the terms for the airball match and he insisted on Ishan being in the room?
Mm-hmm.
Like he wanted Ishan there to be able to sweat the whole 100 hours.
Right.
And I said, absolutely not. Like, this is a mano-a-mano game. Like, I'm counting on the fact that you
Emotional
can't
support human.
Bring on the secret meetings.
Well, he was allowed in the bathroom.
I don't give a fuck what they do in the bathroom. Like, if they want to talk strategy off the table, go nuts. But my take was basically like, this guy is incompetent and certainly won't be able to remember like, heads up is fast. There's no way he's going to be able to relay all of the details of hands back to his team that are going to try to coach him up on in-game adjustments.
I was told the hand history feedback from him trying to text out hands was atrocious.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So it was like, why on earth would I allow a third-party observer to just come in?
That knows what's going on.
Right. Well, that was the other funny thing is back then they were trying to sell Ishan as like this amateur guy who's an engineer for Uber and knows nothing about poker. It's like, okay, well, if you're asking me which one of them I'd rather play heads up, it's not Ishan. You know, so like, let's be clear that
the guy that likes comp sci versus the other one.
Right. Let's be clear that airball is the recreational here. And it became this thing where it's like
he has to take notes from outside the Bobby Zoom glass.
But do you guys recall what the community response was when I thought this was a big deal? Like I pointed out, like this is insane to me.
Yeah.
That a third party could ever be included in a heads up match.
They were just like, why? Like, why?
Yeah, the overwhelming response was like, "Quit being a baby, shut up and play."
Mm-hmm.
Who cares?
You should shut up and play.
Yeah,
that's wild. To
it was overwhelming.
If anything, it should be the other way around. If I challenged someone to a fist fight and then showed up with 3 of my friends, like, what are we doing? Like,
of course,
that's fucking stupid.
Of course, and that's
shut up and fight, bro.
And that's like what. That's why I find this to be like so wildly inconsistent to me, because like, what's the difference, man?
What is different?
If you're gonna have cornermen in whatever discipline it is that you're playing, then we either think it's a big deal or we don't think it's a big deal. I don't understand how we can think one is not a big deal and one is a big deal.
Like in boxing, they go to their corners on breaks, you know, but that's breaks. It's
but
break time.
But another comparison would be tennis, where you're allowed 0 coaching once the match begins. Even
They're
though their
like
coaches are, their coaches are there. They're literally not allowed to offer any strategic advice, right? So I think we need to pick
debates.
Oh.
You can't go to your team
Rightfully so.
on a break and be like, wow, what should I say here?
I'm getting fried out here, man.
I'm gonna take a leave.
Yeah, I think that we need to pick a lane because the inconsistencies here, and honestly, like I'm even admitting that I'm being somewhat inconsistent because I don't think it's that big of a deal for guys at the main event final table to, be able to get fed back what was happening during coverage. But also, I think I'm saying that because they only have so many opportunities to do so. It's either breaks or when there's an all-in moment, right? And those are relatively few and far between. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference between somebody just sitting at the table, like Hawkeyeing, watching every single detail and every single decision, and then relaying information. Like now you're able to stockpile that information for the next break, that kind of thing. I don't know. Do you guys have a thought as far as like what lane we're in and which lane we should pick?
I think go on.
Sorry, I think another really small piece of the puzzle is I was just recalling Darvin Moon and guys like Jerry Yang. Imagine we get another recreational player at the final table and what that must feel like watching these guys go to the rail, running solves, looking at charts, and you've got your buddies from your home game on the rail who are just there to support you.
Right.
It's got to kind of feel like, wow, I don't belong here, or
I'm at a huge
disadvantage.
Yeah.
I would imagine it's, even if it's not a strategical edge,
it's definitely mental.
It has to be a confidence edge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's definitely I'm fighting against a bunch of the sharpest guys in the industry, and I didn't sign up for that.
And they have a computer.
Well, they always have the computer, but I can see the computer now. Like, I see their swords.
Well, we've always seen the computer. The difference is in 2016 when there's a computer on the rail, they're just watching the stream.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We took a laptop to Phil's final table in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
But it was literally just to watch the stream. That was the only purpose behind it. And even that, I think you can make a strong argument that they probably shouldn't have access to that information until break. Right? Like let the 2 hours exhaust and then let the team, kind of debrief them.
Then now you're talking about like, and I mean, the thing is that like no laptops at the table, but like cell phones, or no laptops, I should say, like in the arena. But like a lot of cell phones do,
they're just small laptops.
Yeah, they do a lot of computing power, especially when it comes to like, these solvers. And so like, are you going to like tell everybody to check their phone?
Well, they do.
No, I'm talking about the audience.
Well,
right?
I think you just make the audience inaccessible.
Okay.
Until break.
Okay. Yeah. So just have a barrier between them so they can't like
the way that WPT is ran on a lifted stage where the audience is down below, the way the Penn and Teller Theater used to be.
Yeah.
You just eliminate the on-stage presence.
Yeah. But I mean, I also like, I think that's the reverse of bad optics. It's good optics to see like you with your crowd and your friends and everyone cheering and dumping beer on your head when you win. Like,
okay, so they can still be there, but you just can't have access to them.
Right.
Like, I think that's just the simple thing is, I understand what you're saying. Like, I would say like basically we should just have carved out moments where you can access the rail, and it should only be all in moments, or breaks. And I think during the all in moments, everybody's mic'd. If you're heard getting strategy, then it's a hand penalty.
Yeah. I don't mind the having your friends there and giving you like strategy. I think just having the technology there is the big issue. Having the optics of the laptop and.
Okay, get rid of the laptops, but like I don't think.
Like you said, it doesn't really help because you can just look up a solve on your phone.
I mean, people need to understand like the solves are irrelevant. Like not irrelevant, but like
I know
they're just not worth that much. Yeah. Like the stream is probably worth as much, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
So like get rid of laptops. Let them do whatever the fuck they want on their phone. I actually think it should be incorporated. Like. If we're going, I mean, I'm more curious of what you guys think before I influence everything. But I think that like there's a lot of overreacting to the way this type of stuff should be policed and what it is that we're policing. Like, I can't convey enough that what Patrick was doing from home, what Dom was doing in the crowd, and things of that nature. Those are in-game adjustments that are worth something, but they're in-game adjustments that are worth something strategically similar to, a quarterback going back and looking at, miscommunication between him and a receiver and what led to an interception.
They do this now in baseball. They finally allowed to have like iPads in the dugout. You can just go back and watch the bat you just had and see how the pitcher is pitching, and then you can adjust the next time you're up. Right.
So it's like I don't think that stuff is that big of a deal personally. But optically, I think it's terrible.
To directly answer your question as far as like what should be done, I would think that just optically getting rid of laptops in general should be a thing.
Yeah,
Obviously,
I agree with
people
you.
are still going to get information secondhand. When they go to their rail, they can be like, look, just talk to so-and-so, or I just got this text message. But at least optically, if you get rid of the laptops, it's going to make the a recreational viewer not feel
I think the reason it's so optically bad, and not the full reason, but part of it is because it's not an even playing field, right? When you're playing in the NFL, each side has the access to to all the information. They're going to go back, get good information. But when you're playing in an amateur open game like poker, right, you're going to have the pro who has all his, nerds behind him crunching the numbers, and then you're going to have the amateur, like you said, who just has his buddies there. So it's not an even playing field. So like for one to have all the information and the other one not to have all the information, I think that's where part of the optics is bad.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. But again, I think that the majority of the information being passed one way or the other is from the stream, and everybody should have access to that.
Right.
So even if it's just your buddies watching on a phone, they're still going to be able to relay to you
hey,
whole
he
cards.
had this hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Spot, right.
What you do with that information obviously is going to vary person to person, but that's where the skill comes in, right? I do think that I wholeheartedly agree with a laptop ban. I think that that's just like a no fucking brainer. We're at a time now where we don't need these big machines.
Yeah, I think most people are in agreement with that.
Yeah, get rid of laptops, get rid of iPads.
So for Y promo code laptop off rail.
Can you bring a full desktop with a monitor and?
But the actual getting rid of all devices, I think, is going overboard.
I think so too.
To sequester 200 people's phones sounds
sounds awful.
Nonsense.
Nobody wants to do that. It's the same.
It's also super fucking boring to just sit there.
Of course.
It's a terrible viewing experience to begin with, to be in the crowd, and I mean, I think
no, I don't think that's an option.
Them having their phones to watch the stream on delay is very reasonable. Daniel kind of basically just again, this is such a corporate response. This is kind of the flowery language similar to what WSOP used, where it's you cannot reference solvers or charts during play, only on breaks or outside the tournament area. I remember hearing that announcement being made several times, so I'm not sure how this doesn't break that rule. Either way, if it wasn't clear this year, it's something that needs to be published or prohibited going forward. Based on my understanding of the rule, looking at charts or solves in between hands isn't allowed. Something else or someone else running solves in game and telling you in between hands also should not be allowed. So I disagree with that part. That's impossible to police. Just literally impossible. And I think we should go the other way and embrace it. I think that everybody's mic'd up. This is a fully produced thing. Completely reasonable to offer people timeouts, to cut into the huddle during an all-in moment when their team is talking to them. Let that information come out. You know what I mean? It's on them for what they want to say on camera, on mic. That information is going to be out there forever, so you have to be careful with your words and things of that nature.
It just builds the end of the documentary.
Right. It's very behind the scenes, right?
It's good.
And I don't think that is optically bad at all. I think having these moments that are behind the scenes and being able to hear what each side is discussing in these situations, I think is very compelling to the viewer.
Yeah, I think
and it's very low-hanging fruit.
So what are the nerds talking about versus the other guys?
Yeah. But I mean, you guys love to use disparaging language. I mean, it's
nerds are cool, man.
Yeah, I didn't mean that as an insult.
Okay, well, either way, I think that
nerds and brainiacs, baby.
It's one of those things where
He's got a point.
You have to draw some sort of line with what can be policed without over policing. And to me, it just seems criminal to start to go the route of, you basically need to be locked in if you're going to be in the audience, and locked down to some degree where, you can't speak to the people who are playing the game. You cannot watch the stream and follow along. You can't, really do anything that will possibly compromise the game. And that's fine for something like chess. But if we go the way of chess, so too go the amateurs, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So I think that, it's an experience. It should be an experience, and part of that experience should be trying to play your best and being encouraged by those around you to do so. And that encouragement is going to come in many different forms. You're going to draw confidence from very different places. Somebody who may be a rank amateur might draw confidence from their wife or their girlfriend telling them they got this and giving them a kiss on the cheek. Somebody who's a lot more studied and everything might just serve well to get a simple reminder from someone that they respect that, the big blind ante requires them to play wider now in a heads-up match. These little tidbits aren't actually offering much edge, but they are offering a lot in the way of amplifying the moment for the people involved. And I think all of that lends itself to being a better viewing experience. So I don't think we want to go the way of over policing to the point where, nobody even wants to sit in the audience because there's a chance you might get your boy penalized.
Right. Yeah, when it comes to breaks and things along these lines, they can't even be policed in the first place, Because if someone's trying to say, no studying on break,
you can't go that far. You
can secret meeting it.
Yeah, the bathroom's available.
No one's gonna follow you in. But point being,
Airball launching a course next week.
Yeah. It's for the WPT final table, the way they do that was really nice. Where you have your break, you do what you want. If you wanted to talk to Sims or people, you want to talk to your family and friends, you can do whatever you want. But after the break is over, you go back and you go play away from everybody else. And now the people that are the most annoyed are the audience, because the viewing experience in that way is pretty terrible. Mm-hmm. But there's ways to fix that as well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
When it comes to having a live stream, a delay on one of the TVs, without whole cards, or even with whole cards, because people were kind of asking me where the stream was for the final table because they wanted to watch it.
Right.
And I was like, well, it's televised, so that's not going to be a thing.
Right.
But there's definitely a way to still have a cards up hour delay for the event. For people at home or for the live audience that wanted to see some whole cards or stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's true. They could also just run if you wanted to go the route of sequestering everybody's phone, they could just run the stream on delay, somewhere in at the final table.
That would be cool
for all to see.
Yeah.
Well,
you get reactions and stuff.
Yeah, but you're getting it in an hour lag. So live hands going on and people are just oh.
Yeah,
you bluffed me.
Well, instead of people doing it by themselves on their own phones or laptops, they have it.
They're able to manage it, but now it's a massive distraction to what's actually taking place live. Mm-hmm. I don't really ever think you want a live event to live in the past like that.
Yeah,
it's a lot more interesting when they can see the whole cards.
Yeah.
So if you give the hour delay in the arena, people are going to be more concerned about the display than what's actually going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Which takes away from the point of it being live.
Yeah, I think that's a big miss. Also, just the overall setup right now of where the final table is played is a nightmare compared to the Penn and Teller Theater. And I don't know what, if anything, they can do about that. I don't know if there's even anything that the Horseshoe or Paris offer that would allow them to have a better viewing experience. But currently, there's just it's just not what it was. There's no audience. It's literally only the people on stage. So this notion of moving people back or getting them off stage altogether would be basically eliminating the audience altogether. And even if you are able to get on stage, it's a terrible viewing experience. You have no idea what's going on. You can't really see any of the action. It's just very slow and kind of clogged up. So I think that there are a lot of things that can be worked on that may or may not be addressed. But I do feel very confidently that this particular rule, I guess, if you want to go that route, will be addressed in some sort of capacity. And my fear, after hearing the community tone, is that it's going to be massively over-policed.
Yeah.
I think that the wins rule is equitable and correct. If you're in the tournament area, you're just not able to access these things personally. But for the main event final table specifically, we need to be able to figure out some sort of compromise between what you are accessing and what other people there on your behalf are able to convey. Because I don't think we want to take away that interaction between the players and the audience.
No, I don't think so either.
I think that's a really good part of the viewing experience.
They should just expand on it. They need to build it in. They build it into like the
I mean, if you go November 9 route, my opinion is very much so that like let them have teams. Like they've worked with these people in the weeks leading up to the final table. They're gonna have plenty to discuss.
Let them have teams build. They like if they do documentaries and stuff like that. It builds characters. Like they have so much to like bounce off.
It
of
also
here.
evens the playing field a little bit too. Because
Yeah, of course.
You're everyone, even if you're an amateur, you're gonna have
should
a
hire
team.
someone,
Yeah, you're
for
gonna
sure.
hire a team. Someone's gonna want to come and be on your side.
The other thing is that like this has been happening for a decade in all final tables. We're only making a big deal of it because it's the main event,
Exactly.
and specifically like there's this fear of the wizard kind of taking over. But yeah, I mean, it's funny to me that no one cared prior to the software, because in my opinion, the most valuable information is still the reporting of hole cards, the real time strategic advice changes that you can make. It's not going to be looking up spots. It's not going to be showing you RFI charts or even 3-bet defense charts. Like that's stuff that you really kind of have to know prior to going in. I was a little sloppy with my pre-flop play heading into the heads-up match, and on breaks I would look at like my 3-bet defense and things like that. It didn't really help, man. You have so much baked into your memory that like finding hands that are supposed to be mixing like 50-50 and you know these low frequency 3-bets and stuff like that. If you didn't find it while you were doing your study, you're not gonna suddenly attach it to your memory. And even if you do, it's now not baked into your post-flop strategy all that well. So like, look, obviously, again, I'll reiterate that I think that these things have benefits, but I think that they're massively overstated, and we as a community at large are like way, way, way overblown in how much edge, if any, is being gained from this type of stuff. In my opinion, what's been happening for 10 years has always been the most valuable thing that an audience member could offer, which is watching the stream, relaying hole cards, and offering some sort of in-game adjustments. Like, I know when we were on the rail with Phil, we each kind of like played a little bit of a role, whether it was relaying stream information or reads that we may have had with people that we played with in the past, or kind of coupling all of that together of, okay, well, we've seen enough hands to know this is a trend, be on the lookout for that type of thing. And that's nice because you take, like you offer him streamlined things that he's already thinking about, right? If you want to go to the way of like banning all of that stuff altogether, okay, fine. Like we're getting very black and white on things now, but just know that it has nothing to do with software. It has nothing to do with laptops. It has nothing to do with what people are claiming to be RTA. It has everything to do with what it's always been, which is the fact that there is an hour delay on a stream that's offering this information in real time, So I don't know. I don't know what the end all be all is. My sense from the community is that this is a problem and people really want it to be addressed. My takeaway is that it's optically an issue, and for that we should get rid of the things that optically look bad, which are just laptops. But I don't think it's the end of live poker by any stretch, and I think it's really shitty for both Tamayo and the community at large that this is the biggest talking point now nationally, right? Like the USA Today, these major news sources, like, if the main event's being talked about now, it's whether or not it was cheated. And there's video footage running of McKeon losing an AirPod.
That's the silliest one out of all.
Right? Yeah, it is.
I think it's all pretty silly, to be honest. Like,
there was a picture that looked like Tamayo might have had an AirPod in.
I saw that too.
I'm not sure if he did, but it looked iffy.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Like, look, cheating can exist, and we should do everything under the sun to prevent it at all cost. but like we shouldn't shit on the experience itself in order to ensure that like cheating goes from 1% to 0.5. And I do think that it's already quite low that anybody is doing anything nefarious. I find it strange for the people who are dying on the hill that like retroactively he should have gotten a ban for accessing the rail.
That's pretty absurd.
Yeah.
Again, it's just like, it's just a weird take because this has been happening forever.
Mm-hmm.
Forever.
Yeah.
They come to the rail and they say, what did he have that button versus big blind 3-bet spot? And somebody on the rail conveys it. Like, what do we do? Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, sure. Having a guy like Pads at home on a supercomputer relaying, some exploitative RFI ranges or 3-bet ranges or whatever is like maybe worth a little bit. But truthfully, if you're here, I'll lay it out this way. Do you think Dom on the rail would have any impact whatsoever to a guy like Lena?
Besides, like, confidence-wise or, like, looking for a spot.
Outside of morale.
No.
Strategically, do you think a guy like...
Probably not.
Agreed. Like, I agree. And I think, like...
The difference is that the person that's on the rail is, quote-unquote, better and more studied than the person that's being helped.
Exactly. It's that we're hyper-focused in a spot where no one's giving Tamayo the credit for being a good poker player to begin with, where this stuff isn't all that helpful outside of confidence. Right. And the reason why we're amplifying it in the heads up situation is because that's probably the area where he has the least amount of study. Right. It's probably the area that offers the biggest edge. So again, I don't know what the end all be all rule for this should be, but I do know that if it's going to remain subjective as it is, then the penalty cannot be very heavy handed. It needs to be like a hand or a warning to begin with, right? Like it almost certainly has to start with a warning. And then from there, maybe grow in nature. But imagine if like out of the blue, Jack just came like running from the sidelines. It was like, you get an orbit penalty.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sorry, what? We've been here all day, man.
That's only 2 hands.
That's true. But
5 orbit penalty.
Right. But in any event, like, I think that we're right to identify that optically it's a massive issue and that in and of itself should be corrected. But I think that we're going way, way overboard to try to turn this into some siloed event where the audience is no longer really meaningful in any capacity. And I don't know, man, we have a lot of problems, in my opinion, as far as like growth wise goes. The move from the Rio to the Horseshoe has been more detrimental than I think people realize when it comes to the main event production. I don't think this is a good setup by comparison to the Penn and Teller Theater. The theater was just like it. I mean, you had hundreds of people show. It would sell out. We had a party keg in there.
We did.
Pete got kicked out for doing a keg stand.
But they only used that for the November 9, right? Once November 9 was over,
November 9 ended with the end of ESPN.
Yeah. But I'm saying the Rio didn't still use the Penn and Teller Theater for the final table, did they? After the November 9 when it was not November 9 anymore?
I don't think they did.
I think, didn't the contract end in 19? And wasn't that the last summer at the Rio?
No.
I thought they coincided.
There was more summers at the Rio, I think. I think it was...
The last summer of the Rio was 2021.
Yeah, there's 2 more.
Korai's year was at the Rio?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the year we made a run.
I thought it was Espen's final year.
No,
22,
that's the year we
23.
made a run.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, they were way off of ESPN by then.
Yeah.
I don't know if they... maybe they didn't. Where
it was just in the Thunderdome.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I mean...
I've never seen the Penn.
I guess it would only have been Korai's year and... Who won in 19? I know.
Blumstein?
No. It starts with an E. He's an older guy.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, Hassan. No, Ensan Hassan.
Ensan Hassan, yeah. So I guess it would have just been those.
Hossein Ensan. Right?
Hossein Ensan. There we go.
I guess it would have just been those 2 years then. And yeah, I mean, maybe we just didn't notice much, but because wasn't like star-studded final tables. Not a lot of people were going to go.
What year was the last year of November 9?
I think it was the last ESPN year, but I could be wrong. I thought it was either 18 or 19, but maybe not.
9, so it has to be like at least 18.
The big thing with the November 9 was that they would play out the entire duration of the main event leading up to the final table, which was then live.
Yeah.
So, you had, 12 weeks or 16 weeks or whatever, and they would do all the prelims say it was every Monday or whatever. Mm-hmm. So they would do prelims on every Monday leading up, and then come late September, early October, you would start to hit the main event.
Yeah, they'd maybe you would start at day 3 or something, like day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6,
yeah,
all the way to the final table, and then the next week it was just
live
the final table. Yeah,
that's dope.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, it was a big thing. I don't know. Honestly, I'm bored with this conversation, to be quite frank.
Yeah.
I'm really shocked that it picked up steam again. Again, I think it's because Dom is such a polarizing figure, and he leans so heavily into his villain era, if you will. I mean, I was down the rabbit hole following his timeline, and the vast majority of his responses were not anything in the realm of good faith.
He banned Johan from the DTO chat, calling him a broke loser.
Why?
Because Johan put the clip of solvers in the tournament area, and then Dom was like, "Broke loser, you're banned," and then banned him.
He loves to call people broke. It's very funny.
Oh man,
it's the JMO
that's why he and JMO are friends. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. I guess when you just pick up a cool 2.5 for coaching, makes you feel a little bit more rich. Yeah. So he's had like a $4 million year.
Yep.
A little bit less. Good for him. In any event, him being an asshole makes it very easy for this conversation to continually resurface, I guess. But I really don't think that this is going to need a large correction. Like, it doesn't need 7 days of discussion.
No.
This just needs Jack and whoever he consults, Chainsaw, fucking D-Negs, I don't know. But it just needs him, Ty, and whatever outside consultants they reach out to come to a consensus of what is the subjective rule going to be. Because I don't think we're going to get to an objective one. I don't think we're going to have a black and white type of rule where, it's literally no technology in the arena. Nobody's allowed to relay the stream and all that. I don't think we're going to get that far. So whatever the subjective rule is, which it seems like they already have one in place, now it just becomes a matter of actually threatening to implement penalties and then figuring out what that penalty structure is going to be. Seems very reasonable to start with a warning and then maybe get ramped up a little bit. DQ is crazy unless, I mean, you bake it in, right? Like, you have all of your bases covered where it's like, if you're accessing information through a third party, like, that's a warning / 1 round penalty depending on where you're at. If you are on your phone at the table looking at GTO Wizard, like, that might be a DQ. And that's the spectrum that we're operating on, right? But they just basically need to get more clear and be willing to I guess oversee these types of things and pull the trigger. But again, like, this conversation to me is very tired and probably a little bit overblown. I can't imagine what the three horsemen are going to be discussing at this point, but I mean, I think we all agree that it's just a bad viewing experience at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And not one that we want to utilize to promote the game.
Agreed.
Okay, hopefully we don't have to talk about this ever again.
Be nice.
Agreed.
I'm tired.
Maybe I just like it bothers me because I think it's going to reemerge the conversation with Savage of banning fucking phones.
Yeah. No,
it's just like it can't happen, man.
It's not
like
happening. It won't happen. It just can't happen.
There are too many recreationals who just do not.
It's not going to happen. Don't worry, it's not going to happen.
You say that.
People
and then
will
it happens.
riot.
Like, the main concern is just the EV gain from the machine.
I don't think people think that way.
They're attributing it to, like, theft.
I don't think people think that way. I think that they think I think there's a broad spectrum of what people believe is happening. And I think that they think it's everything from...
It's like the fear-mongering of RTA.
Yeah. I think it ranges from people like us that are kind of in the know that realize this is just kind of a confidence boost at best, all the way to people who think that like he just downloaded a strategy into his brain, walks out there and executes it.
He's Neo.
Sounds like we should just blame Ali.
I think it's Ali's fault.
It
too.
is Ali's fault.
That's the other thing. You're like, don't fucking get me started. But like, how are we having this conversation right now with like
while he's in there just playing tournaments?
Yeah, poor fucking Tamayo's just getting dragged through the mud every single day.
Justice for Tomato.
The sweetest fucking kid on the earth. And then we got Ali out there just balls deep in a fucking 1500, you know, actually executing largely contrived strategies through fucking RTA. Like, literally through getting paid to study. I blame us. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I think this is somehow our fault.
It's all our fault.
It is.
It's all, I'm in the muck.
Oh, let's go to it.
We're back in the muck.
We never left the muck.
Well, it's been about a week, you know, since we've done one of these things.
Just because we haven't addressed it doesn't mean we're not there.
I know. We had a lot going on last week, you know, people cheating with laptops.
The muck doesn't go away.
So we got our man Chip Wrangler. He's back in the muck. He's coming from the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
He's coming from the muck.
Yeah, he comes from a new casino out there. They're playing 1-3, and starts off just like a typical 1-3 game would be with the hijack limping, the low jack limping, the hijack limping, and then the cutoff makes it 15. We are on the button with ace 3 of diamonds. We decide to just call, and the blinds fold, the limpers fold, and we go heads up to a flop of 8 of diamonds, 7 of spades, 5 of hearts. The cutoff leads for 25. We decide to call with our backdoor flush draw and over, and the turn. Backdoor. And the turn is the 10 of diamonds, giving us a backdoor flush draw. And now it's check to us. We bet 60 into 90. We are met with a check raise to 160. We decide to call, and the river is the ace of hearts. And now we only have 85 back, which is about 1/5 of the pot. And they put us all in. We decide to call, and we win because they had the king 10 offsuit.
I played a hand like this once. I didn't call the river.
Whoa. Like on that kind of board?
Very similar.
We lost to
Were you river top
7.
pair?
Yeah.
You don't remember this?
And you didn't call 1/5 of a
You don't
pair?
remember when I yelled at him?
I bet like ace 5 of clubs.
I'm still yelling at
I
him.
bet like ace 5 of clubs on a turn, like king 9 6 3 2 club board. Got raised for like 80% of stacks. I just call river and ace. I check, and he bets like 20% pot, and I fold.
Yeah. Well, so I mean,
7 high.
Chip Langer, I mean, he was in the muck
Genius.
on the river, and he did say in the submission that he tank called the river. So he gave it some thought.
Yeah, I mean, look, if I've learned anything, the river decision is not where we're in the muck.
I don't think so.
When
And I don't think he thinks
I mean, I
that
think
either.
it starts pre-flop.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think it starts pre-flop, Matt.
What do you mean?
Why?
Okay, so ace 3 of diamonds versus what looks like a squeeze, right? Give me 1 second.
Not
Let me-
No,
squeeze,
it's
it's
It
limp.
went limp,
It went
raise.
limp.
Sorry, hold on.
Limp ISO.
Yeah.
Limp call ISO.
Yep.
Limp.
I think if you're gonna get spicy here, it's a 4-bet or fold.
3-bet?
Sorry,
3-bet.
3-bet or fold.
Oh, it's not a fold. You can never fold.
I don't hate
I
his
think
call.
you can fold here.
Okay.
You could fold in some Galaxy
it's
land. I'm not folding.
Yeah, I'm never folding a suited wheel on the button.
I'll do anything else
Still got
but
2 players
fold.
behind.
There's 6 more back there. I call.
Yeah, I don't think Guapo's wrong for what it's
I mean,
worth.
No, of course,
listen,
but this is live
we've been here
poker.
before. We know Guapo knows his pre-flop shit. But
Well, I mean, let's not go too far. I don't think he's looked at much 5x
probably not.
ISO range
Yeah, no, that's
button
true.
play, but
That's true, but you know.
I imagine he's probably in the right realm of like what needs to happen here.
We're such a big open, and yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you know, calling probably can't be bad. I don't imagine.
So all three options are on the table. Is what you're saying?
Berkey, when was the last time you mucked your hand in a situation like this?
Berkey was great.
Hold on. When was the last time you mucked your hand in a situation like
That's
this?
not the question at hand.
It's my question now.
By any stretch of the imagination, nobody's talking about what I do here.
When's the last time you looked at this hand and said, "This could possibly be a fold, but I'm going to call anyways"?
That's
I do that.
always.
I do
That's
that all
always.
the time.
That's before.
No, in this exact situation.
Yeah, that's before the action. This might be a fold, but
Yeah, I mean, I think Guapo's probably right. It probably does just mix between 3-bet and fold. But then like a hand like ace 4 suited is just going to mix between like call and 3-bet.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
And you don't want to do
I guess
that.
if it's like, yeah, maybe it does mix between 3-bet and fold just because you don't want to be going like multi ways. But like, I would just always choose 3-bet. I would never fold this hand.
So I'm looking at Wizard now. It's actually just a pure fold.
Wow, look at that.
Oh, wow. Would you look at that?
See, it's funny. I was just not fold that hand.
Well, I mean,
That's
also,
fine.
I mean, the issue is like
But-
versus limp
Maybe I
call
need to
and
be
then
more of a
then
tortoise.
ISO ranges, right? Like King 10 off doesn't exist.
I mean, it's
you know?
mainly because it's 5x, right? Like,
Yeah.
King 10 off's in there.
It's in there. Yeah. It has an open. I
Yeah.
see what's going on.
This is what the cutoff
Is this
range
cutoff
is.
button? He was button?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's
5x
you just basically get to open wider for 5x than you get to defend. So yeah, I mean, like, you know, it's a bit more of an aggressive response. I mean, that's actually not even true. It's still calling like a fair amount here. 4% call versus such a large open is probably more than you would suspect, but you know, it just wants to key in on certain subsections of the range. So like ace 5, ace 4, I would think ace 3 would play more than ace 8. I'm surprised that ace 8 mixes all three options and ace 3 is just like a pure fold. But I guess like it partly has to do with SPR shrinking. And so like now kickers are going to matter.
You just dominate all the ace wheels.
Yeah, like you're just going to be in a little bit better shape. Like I'm not sure how much 8x I mean, I guess he's not really opening any 8x, like no 9-8, no 10-8, nothing like that.
No.
But he's obviously not opening any 3x. And now at least you block hands like pocket 8s. And when you start to get to like the 9x, now he has more 9s that you dominate. You dominate 10-9, you dominate king 9, that type of stuff. So like it does get to a point where sensitivity towards kicker starts to matter a lot more. Reason being that you're just going to play an all-in pot so much more frequently.
Yeah.
So
is the cutoffs opening now that they're opening 5x? Does that make their range like
tighter?
Which because
much.
in practice it's not. That's just kind of like what the open is.
I mean,
right?
Yes, it's tighter to a degree, but not much. Like a normal open would just include ace 9, ace 8, and then like some ace 5 off, right? So you're clipping a couple pips here in the offsuit ace x, but like these were all negligible to begin with.
Yeah. The reason
and then you're cutting out. I understand. Let me finish.
Okay.
And then you're cutting out the bottom of pocket pairs and like some of the Fantastic Four, right? So you're basically reducing hands that are making nearly nothing at equilibrium for a small opening size. They now begin to like, I guess, start to lose. Like pocket fours is probably just like losing to open this size. It's losing 0.03 big blinds. Now, I understand your point is that in practice, these hands probably still exist.
Right.
But they're going to exist weirdly, right? Like in practice, this guy's going to limp back a lot of hands too.
Yeah.
So he might not have 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s because they might just limp.
Might just limp those, right?
And he probably doesn't ever ISO ace 9 off.
Yeah.
Or ace 5 off anyway.
I guess basically what I'm asking
his
is if he 3x instead of 5x, then does the ace 3 go in? Does it V-pip then?
We can check.
I mean, hands like 8-7 suited, 9-8 suited open for 15 here all the time. Like it just happens.
Well, yeah,
in live
at
poker.
3x, these become a lot more normal. So you start to see what I said. Like
Right,
ace 8 gets added in, ace 5 off, small frequency.
Right.
The Fantastic Four now comes back
But
into
with
play.
2 limps, doesn't that change like the opening
Now
size?
ace 3 is
So
pure.
the range is wide enough for now V-pipping with the ace 3 is profitable.
It's not just the range being wider. Like, yes, the wideness is one factor. The other factor is that the SPR manipulation is less. So when we're 3-betting, we're 3-betting to 10 blinds rather than 20.
Yeah.
That's a huge aspect of this, right? So you can continue to go down. Like that's why I hesitated so much with Guapo's point, albeit he was dead correct. Like he's spot on. At some point you cross a threshold where the SPR is shrinking to a degree where like certain hands just can't play.
Yeah.
But I was thinking along the same lines as you, where it's like, well, if the range is static and didn't really change any, then our response shouldn't really change either. But that's not true.
Right.
It's not true because of the SPR. It may become true in the calling range. So like what he actually did by calling may be justifiable if the opener's range is wide enough. But I think Conrad's point is very valid, where since there were 2 limps up front, he's going to limp a bunch of hands. And the second that becomes true, his opening range actually becomes tighter.
Right, yeah.
Right? Like if he's limping suited broadways at all that are just supposed to be pure opens, that range is now tighter.
But there's also a flip side to that, where there's players that are just opening more. Like when it goes limp, like 8-7 suited, 9-8 suited, these are hands that are all getting open for 15.
Maybe
6-5 suited, like all of that shit. That happens a lot. Like
no, he's right. Some people will actually become wider because they want to now just like steal the blinds.
That's not
more
wider.
Money out there.
That's not wider. That's just a normal opening range.
Yeah, just normal, whatever.
Right? It's just a normal opening range with tacked on big blinds. But I don't think that that's a uniform statement that can be stated. Like I think people respond to limps in very different ways.
Yes.
Hands that can hit home runs, they often limp back.
Right.
Like you'll see a lot of the pocket pairs there.
Connectors
You'll see suited connectors. You'll see suited aces.
Gappers.
Like hands they don't really want to bloat the pot with because they don't, they have drawing potential, but they don't have showdown potential.
They got 6-8 suited and they're like, well, I'm just going to try.
Right. So like, honestly, I think like this opening range is probably reasonably representative of the pool. Like, how much is King 9 suited getting opened? I don't know. But
I think that would get limped.
I mean, you think very oppositely of what I would think. I think King 9's a natural open and 6-5's a natural limp.
Yeah, I think
and you can think the opposite, but in any event, like the fact that they're both in there at some frequency seems fine. I think that this is a pretty reasonable range for the opener. I think that this is not how people are going to respond.
No.
This is too tight.
Yep.
As far as representing what our hero's range is going to look like, and that's evident by the fact he has a hand that doesn't VPIP. But again, like it doesn't really lose anything. Through a call, it's losing 0.03 big blinds, which is negligible. I mean, it's effectively nothing. Like these are situations where it's like what you see on the graph versus what happens in reality are very different, right? So we see pure blue, and that's just static to meaning losing money, right?
Yeah, I suppose where I was going with the King 10 off in range is that when it goes limp, in theory, it probably would not play the ISO strategy.
Yeah, maybe not.
Because the people behind, if they're protected, will have limp re-raises. So the open is kind of wide in itself.
Well, we're talking about fucking a duck with 3 heads at this point. Like these limpers obviously aren't protected. So like everything that happens thereafter is going to be exploitative.
Yeah, so I think that like folding ace-3 would probably just be a mistake.
Fair, but where I was going with this, which is much more general to theory, or general mistakes that people make when it comes to studying theory, is you look at the chart and you see pure blue, so you get Guapo's response. No, this is a fold. You're terrible. You're bad. You can't play this hand. It's awful.
I didn't say we're terrible or bad. I'm just going off of what I know.
That's the context of terrible and bad, though.
Wait, how did you know that this folds at a 5x open?
It's just rope memory, man.
When did you look at 5x ranges?
I'm just after seeing things for so long, you just kind of know like where you're at in terms of like if you're looking at a hand matrix and you go,
Guapo wouldn't want to fold ace-4.
This is sort of borderline here.
But if I would have told you this was a 3x open, would you still have thought ace-3 suited was just a pure fold?
Say that again.
If this were a 3x open instead, would you still have thought ace-3 suited was the fold pre?
What do you mean a 3x open? Like
instead of 5x?
If it just got folded around to the cutoff?
No, if it went limp 3x. Yeah.
I'm still not crazy about it.
It's a pure continue.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we just because we get things right and wrong doesn't mean that like we have any degree of confidence in what's actually happening here. And that's what I'm trying to come at here. So it's like you look at the ace-3 suited and it's pure blue, and it's like, oh, that's a fold. You're destroying your strategy if you continue with it. But when you dig in and look at the EV and realize that calling is only losing 0.03 big blinds, which is negligible, now this hand is completely playable with any sort of post-flop skill.
Right.
Right? Like the difference between continuing with that through a call versus continuing with ace-4 suited through a call is the difference of less than 0.1 big blinds. It's a delta of 0.08 big blinds, which is negligible.
It's not an issue, but it's like the way you expand your ranges. The button is like if you're saying to make a case for ace 3, now you're making a case for ace deuce, ace 6, ace 7 suited, like ace jack off.
You're not though.
Why?
Because ace 3 is losing 0.03 big blinds. Ace deuce is losing 0.12 big blinds. This is a big delta.
Okay, now look at ace 6, ace 7.
Yeah. Yes. Now it's very particular, right? Like ace 7 loses almost nothing through a raise, but loses almost a tenth of a big blind through a call, right? So you're right. When you're expanding ranges, you need to understand how the hands functionally can expand. Ace 7 could be added to a 3-bet range. Ace 3 can be added to a call range. Ace deuce shouldn't be added at all. Ace 6 clearly could 3-bet. It's only losing 0.03 big blinds, but can't really call as it's losing almost 0.2 big blinds through a call.
Yeah, and I think a lot
That's
of people,
huge.
Yeah, a lot of people like look at like a chart like that and just think that like if it's a fold,
it's a fold.
One fold is the same as another fold, which is not really correct. You need to
situations
dig
like
in a little deeper.
In situations like this where at equilibrium the numbers vary so much, all it's going to take is a slight adjustment to one single variable to move that number drastically in one direction or the other, right? So simply put, say we folded the ace 3 suited here and this hand went to showdown, the guy showed down king 10 off. That in and of itself should be enough to know that ace 3 probably becomes a VPIP, right? Because at a bare minimum, he's opening a standard 5x range if folded to, which is now probably too wide of an opening range over 2 limpers, right? So we're almost certainly recouping money simply through the dead 2 big blinds of people that limped in and won't always continue. And that in and of itself will probably be enough to make a hand that's like very cuspy and borderline like ace 3 enough to VPIP, right?
Or worth a 3-bet because you're getting extra blinds of dead money. That's like they're basically cold.
I would rather 3-bet, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it in theory could go either way. They
heavy ranked environments.
They both basically have the same loss rate. But like if you want to increase your 3-bet frequency, you should probably draw upon ace 7, ace 6 instead, right? Like these hands are doing significantly better through a 3-bet than they would be through a call.
And so it makes pre-flop like a very expansive tree to look into, because like you start playing with some stuff and say, okay, I think if I 3-bet, the people that limped aren't going to play limp 4-bet enough, or things along these lines, which means their range is now dead, which means this blind's now ours more.
What we don't have access to is exploration in pre-flop play. Like we can't play with the sim the way we can with post. It's very easy for us to play around with some variables and see what changes a candidate from losing money to winning money, right?
It takes a really long time, yeah.
Not
like
post.
You could. I'm saying pre.
Oh,
like pre. You can HRC it, right?
It's effectively impossible at this point. Yes, you could do it, but like
it's just going to take forever to gain nothing.
It's literally not worth it. You could just use deductive reasoning and probably come close. And even if you can't come close, it doesn't really make all that big of a difference in game. But at some point, we're going to get exploratory pre-flop tools, right? Like at some point, Wizard's going to release a pre-flop solver that allows you to run it in 4 seconds.
Or it's like limp, ISO. You can literally just run the spot in 3 seconds.
The second that occurs, now all of a sudden we're going to be able to do all this comparative analysis and see the way that range shape shift. And the issue is that everybody's operating off of these rigid, static pre-flop ranges. So now, anytime somebody steps out and deviates, their whole sim breaks, but they don't recognize that that's occurred, right? They assume that nobody can do better or worse than theory. Nobody could do better than theory whenever it comes to altering strategy. But that doesn't become true at the root node, right? Like, because all of your post-flop strategy is born off of the root node. And if you have 2 theoretical ranges pitted against one another and you run a post-flop strategy there, but one person's actually VPIPing 100, your strategy is now going to, it's not going to lose overall, but there are going to be fractions of your strategy that are losing a bunch of EV because you aren't properly protected in certain nodes, or you aren't properly attacking other nodes.
So like your value is going to go up and your value is going to go up, and then your bottom is going to be very going to go down. Like
right.
You're just going to lose more there, but when you make a good hand, you're going to get paid.
Right. So like on the aggregate, your overall strategy may be worth comparable EV or, you know, whatever. It's not losing much. But whenever you dig in, your bluffs are absolutely getting torched, and now you can do better by just not bluffing, for instance. Or the inverse. Your value is getting torched because he has too many hands to parse through and doesn't call it. Whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is like that's the fun game when it comes to study, is that we're digging into we're past the global strategy, and we're saying like, okay, how do the moving parts actually generate money for us?
Like there's a reason why you can't just VPIP 100 from everywhere.
Yeah, of course.
You're just losing too much because you don't get dealt X% of hands enough.
Right, but you don't lose by default. That's the big misnomer, I think. Somebody has to respond.
Someone has to make you lose.
Yes. If somebody's overfolding by 45% in every single node, you probably could VPIP 100.
Yeah.
Or you could probably juggle that range in a way where it doesn't lose money. Now, you'd still do better by not VPIPing 100. But if you're just always able to back them into a corner to fold, unless they have like, you know, top 5% of range on each street that compounds then to the river, your bet check line is just going to print.
Yeah, that's I
Right?
guess how MDA works, right?
Yeah, I mean, largely speaking, that's just how exploitative extrapolation works. And that's what makes live so beautiful, is we get the picture whenever we look at theory, and then we say, how does this picture mismatch to my environment? And we start to just like carve out edges in the different subsections that our environment don't adhere to. You know, our environment doesn't have this collection of hands pre-flop. How can I attack that? Our environment has this collection of hands pre-flop and shouldn't. How can I attack that? Right?
The issue is making an assumption on where an edge is and then just being incorrect and then having to recalibrate.
Yes and no.
It's like I think, oh, like this bluff never gets through, and then so you check a pure theoretical barrel,
right?
And they check back, and you would like, I would have got him.
Yeah. That's a great example.
Like this happens all the time.
Right. Yeah. Now I have to recondition the way that I approach these spots. Yeah, I think that's a really great way of looking at it. All right, getting back to the actual hand at play. Okay, so we agree that pre-flop could have gone a different way. But, you know, whatever, it's one of those situations where my man's going to come in with it. He's going to play. And I think that that's kind of okay. So let's go and add that hand in. We'll just give it 50%, even though he's probably VPIPing a lot of these hands a lot more often. I still think it should give us a general idea of what we're looking at here. So we had the 8 of diamonds, 6 of
8
hearts?
of diamonds, 7 of spades, 5 of hearts.
7 of spades,
7
5 of
or-
hearts.
I have 8.
That what you had?
I have 8 of diamonds, 7 of spades, 5 of
Okay.
hearts.
Yeah.
All right, so cutoff should be playing pure check in game. That is not what happened, correct?
So on the turn,
In
are we
game-
on the turn or on the flop?
On the flop. In game, he bet like 55%.
Right.
Okay, so we're already in trouble. Let me go back and actually just alter some things so that this post-flop strategy changes a little bit. Because what's happening is the button's range is so fucking tight that the cutoff just has no edge and can't really blast off. But let's just, everything that's like a partial candidate, let's just give it to him in full. And just assume that like he 3-bets too tightly.
Whose range are you manipulating?
The
right now?
buttons.
Okay.
So let's give him 10s plus. We'll give him all the pocket pairs too. Those hands are probably in there. We'll give him the suited connectors. Boop, boop, boop. Some 1-gappers. They're fun. And then we'll give him like half of the stronger stuff. So like king, queen, ace, queen. Maybe not so much ace, king, ace, jack suited. Basically, people tend to just 3-bet linearly, I think. So we'll just weight it accordingly. And then like let's give him like half combos of these hands that don't exist in theory. Ace 7, ace 6, maybe a little.
People like
king
suited
9.
aces.
Yeah, people like suited hands. All right, I still don't think this is going to yield us a C-bet, but I'm hoping it does because I don't want to start painting already. Yeah, god damn it. It's tough. He also goes for like the big size, so it's like particularly annoying. All right, let's get the sizing down. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna give him a c-bet range of like half the time, I guess.
Sounds about right. People see that way too.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. King 10 just never makes it in. Okay, so let's go quarter of the time here. A little of this, a little of this, a little of this. How does Jacks never make it in? Jesus. C-betting half the time and like Jacks are just never in.
Can't do it.
All right, well, I can assure you Jacks are in, Queens are in, Kings are in, Aces are in.
Can't be put in the pot with a vulnerable hand like that. Jeez.
Are 8's a set?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
8-7-5 on flop.
Okay. All right.
This is a straight draw.
Let's give him all this. Let's give him all of this. I mean, you know, we're already off in fucking Narnia here. So let's see. I assume Ace 3 is just a fold now. Yeah, just pure fold. Okay. Okay. Not a lot to talk about. And I think we knew this without running a sim. Pretty clear. Like, this isn't the hand that you want to be floating with. You need to have a straight draw. So if you have the Ace 6s, if you have the Ace 9s, even the Ace 4 is in there. And I think that that's what we can use instead to run the rest of the sim. Is we'll just look at what Ace 4 suited wants to do, and kind of manage from there. But you know, you need to be very particular. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see people making is how they choose to go about floating their backdoors. They often look at the overcard instead of the sidecar.
Yeah.
The side card is actually so much more important in most instances. Like, this is a bad board example, but like if say you have a board texture of like, call it like King 8-4 rainbow, something along those lines. And you're deciding what types of backdoors you want to float. Of course, the ace high backdoors are nice because you have the overcard, but Queen Jack is fucking in. You know, having 2 overs to the middle card is just like worth a lot. And when you're looking at like these straighty type boards like 8-7-5, having a straight draw or a backdoor to a straight draw that can complete is worth a fucking ton.
9, 10, 6.
Yeah. Even just like having a jack in your hand is worth so much more than having like an ace and a 3.
And is it good to think that, like, well, since it's a rainbow board, your range is just naturally going to have a lot of backdoors, so you have to be a little bit more particular on which ones you choose?
Yeah, for sure. Like, instinctually, I would say that Queen Jack suited here is going to float non-zero. Ace 3, though, is 0, right? So, like just that's kind of the point, is just having 2 overs with an actual backdoor straight draw. Like, I'm using Queen Jack as the extreme because obviously it gets to a degree where you know, you need to come running 9-10, but you still make the nuts, right? So like you look at hands like Queen Jack suited, King Jack suited, like these are in. You know, these hands are in. Even King Queen suited's in because it's 2 overcards and not 1.
Right.
The ace high peels are, you have to be very particular. Like the ace 4's in because it can back into the low end of a straight, like, or just has a gut shot actually.
It has bad straight and then potential wheel.
Right, potential wheel candidate, right? But it could just drill the 6. The 3 only has potential wheel candidate and it puts a 1-liner to the 6.
Yeah.
So it's kind of useless, you know? The ace 4 is a lot better. So let's just navigate this as though we have ace 4 of diamonds, which thankfully is not the raise candidate. Ace 4 of clubs is. So we're going to continue through a call. Turn is going to be the 10 of diamonds. And the real question is just going to be, should we be all in on this particular card?
Probably not.
So, oh, my bad. I didn't realize he checked. Okay, so the real question is going to be, should we bet?
Yeah.
Probably.
And it looks as though, okay, he's going to play a fair amount of checks, about 70% of the time. Now we have the option here between betting and checking, pure bet. So he got that right. Looks like ace 4 of diamonds prefers a bit more of the small size, so 40%. What did he go in game? He went 60 into 90, so he went 2/3. He went more of the large size here. Which it does do this some of the time, I suppose. Let's change 100% pot to 66. And let's just make that our only size, since I imagine we're probably not choosing others. See how this changes things. This might lead to less checking, actually. Yeah, it does. So it reduces the out of position check frequency. You can see his 10x is now just betting a hell of a lot more often. We forgot to lock the king 10. Shit. Shit. Gotta go all the way back. Wait, we did lock it.
Yeah.
Why is it not?
Because it probably doesn't check the turn.
Oh, yeah. No. I was looking at the wrong node.
Yeah.
I was looking at the button. Okay, so it does check. That's good.
Okay.
So it's in there. The 66% size, ace-4 is just pure red. So give him the check mark there. The king 10 should just be pure call, but my guy is getting after it.
Mm-hmm.
So he raises, let's see. We bet 60 into 90, so 120 plus, so call it 210. So he's going to raise about half pot. So out of position got the sizing correct at least. Even though it's never chosen. All right, let's take all in away. Let's see if it's ever chosen. Obviously, he's going to have to raise some. Okay. Now king 10 gets in there just a little bit. Okay, so that's good. So the raise size comes through. Now we have a decision. Ace-4 of diamonds, pure call. Okay. River, ace of hearts. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Jam. Pretty much mostly by range. King 10 actually checks. To call it off. And yeah, it's just a pure call.
Yeah.
Okay, so nothing groundbreaking there. We didn't expect to see anything too crazy. But I do think what we can take away are the points that we already highlighted, which is how you are manipulating the bottom of your range. And this is kind of the point we're hammering home both pre and post, right? Pre-flop, you need an excuse to get in there with a hand that otherwise doesn't VPIP. Whether you think he's opening too widely or you think that the limpers are just giving up, that in and of itself could be a reason to VPIP ace-3 suited. Fine. Post-flop, have to identify that you're facing a c-bet that's discouraged, right? Like there's just no incentive for out of position to be betting an 8-7-5 board
No.
when their range is like 5x wider than yours.
And more high card dense.
Right. So just know that c-bet is always going to be imbalanced. And what you choose to do to combat against that is going to basically dictate your post-flop strategy moving forward. Had he raised, I would fault him less than calling.
It's weird. You know, you never really know how someone's going to over or under c-bet, right? Like looking at king 10 off on this board, it's like, oh, probably a hand that doesn't necessarily want to c-bet too often. And some people will like c-bet every board because like that's the thing.
Yeah.
And some people will be more aware that you don't want to bet this board very often.
Right.
So gotta use your brain a little bit.
I mean, I think, well, it was a 0% c-bet. So when it comes through, I think the way you use your brain is, does this guy bet his overpairs always and then not a bunch of other stuff? Or does this guy bet his overpairs as well as the rest of his range? And when you land on the latter...
Some things you can only know after the fact.
Possibly true. But you should,
like from other
you should already kind of have an idea based off of pre.
Like I would never expect somebody to have king 10-0 as a c-bet, right? But it happened.
There are plenty of people I would expect to see that from.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Plenty of people I would expect to see that from, and I would just like,
I can't remember which one I was reading,
but
I think he might have said he was at OMC.
Either way, right?
I mean, that's a reason to fold pre and fold on the flop.
No, that was a different. Sorry.
Okay.
That was a different.
But yeah, in any event, like you need to understand that you are at bottom and you have a hand that's a fuck around and find out kind of hand. So if you have a strong read that this guy is too wide, then you want to reaggress. You don't really want to play passively. Either 3-bet pre or flop raise. But going the call route, I think, is a general mistake. Mainly on this particular board texture. Reason being is that this texture doesn't ever fall favorably for your particular hand. Like there are a lot of hands that you can just fuck with him by floating.
Overcards and equity, pair plus equity.
You could have Jack 10 off here and still like kind of mess with this guy by having too wide of a c-bet range. You don't need to necessarily raise that particular candidate.
Yeah, it's funny when you think about it, because like the polar raise strategy from in position in that spot is kind of like the finding out where you're at. You know, like you have a set and you have a really good hand. Like you don't care how good his hand is, right? Mm-hmm. But you have a hand like this and you like re-aggressive or 3-bets. You're like, okay, no problem.
Yeah, you're just out, right? And then you have other good strong hands like 8-7 or pocket nines or 9-10 suited, something along those lines. Whatever, you you go for it.
Or you can just play call. You know, it's like my hand's good enough.
Correct.
I don't really want to get 3-bet off of my equity. I want to see what the turn card is just because my hand gets better or worse because of it.
Yeah.
You play more calls and then wait for the check.
Yeah, I think all of that's really important to understand and conceptualize before you start playing these fringe hands. If you're just passively meandering your way to showdown post flop, you need to start dumping these hands like Wapo said.
Yeah, have to play aggressively because there's a lot of money to be made by denying equity versus trying to make a hand.
Yeah.
You're going to make more money denying equity than making a hand.
Yeah.
It's hard to make a hand.
And for the out of position player, his only real mistake was flop. I think he played everything else relatively well.
Turn check raise river jam.
Turn check raise is aggro, but it's in there.
River jam?
Yeah. Oh, okay. It's supposed to check call, but you know, whatever. Can't be losing that much. I mean, compounding everything, he was losing a lot through the line he took.
That's the issue, though, to an extent, right? It's like
when you excuse each node, it's like, not that big of a deal, but the overall strategy, like torch.
Well, it's like if you're giving partial credit 3 different times, you know?
Yeah.
You end up with like quarter credit.
Yeah, you end up with a D.
Yeah. C's get degrees, man.
That's true. All right. If you guys would like to submit your own in the muck, head over to our Discord. You can hit hashtag Discord in the chat or go to @onlyfriends_pod. It's the pinned tweet on our Twitter page. Big shout out to GTO Wizard for sponsoring the In the Muck segment. If you guys would like your own version of GTO Wizard AI, hit hashtag Wizard in the chat. Be sure to follow that affiliate link and get yourself a subscription today. That's going to do it for us. I imagine this conversation will roll on with regards to Laptop Gate or whatever the fuck it is that we're calling it.
No more.
But you won't be hearing it from us. Tomorrow we're going to be back fresh. We're going to be talking live poker again. I'm back in the streets. Man, I had a swingy weekend. So we'll get into that a little bit. Be sure to join us. Tomorrow we are at 11. Wednesday we're going to have to come to you at noon. I have a dentist appointment in the morning. But otherwise, we'll see you guys all then.
Peace.
Peace.